Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Abu Musa here, live in Bradford. This is another broadcast, a very short kind of like vlog we're going to do today. I have a very interesting guest today, Brother Abdul Jabbar, a councillor, local politician. He's here to have a little conversation with me about some of the issues that we have currently, specifically Palestine and Kashmir. So I'm going to ask him some questions, prompt him with certain things, and maybe a little style of interrogation to see what kind of answers he has and what kind of solutions he's offering the Muslims of Palestine and Kashmir. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Abdul Jabbar. How are you?
Islam. How are you doing, Asif? Are you okay?
I'm very well, thank you very much. And Jazakallah khair for joining me today. I hope we can have a fruitful conversation. First of all, can you just tell me a little bit about your political career? Very brief synopsis of it, and we can sort of like get on with the questions.
I've been involved in the community. I've been involved in a lot of campaigns and issues related to local issues as well as what's going on in Palestine and Kashmir.
Okay.
So I've been involved in that. The people that know me will verify that.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing in Palestine and Kashmir is a lot of human rights abuses.
Yeah.
And
Can I ask you first of all, sorry Abdul Jabbar for cutting you off there, but I wanted to ask you a quick question first of all. From the years that you've been involved in politics and you've been involved with the campaigns here, what have you seen in Kashmir and Palestine? Have you seen the situation improve there? Do you believe, the work that you've done and the campaigns that you've been part of, do you think that the state of the Kashmiri people and the Palestinian people has improved? Do you think your work here in the UK has made a difference to their lives, first of all? And can you give me practical examples of how you've made a difference?
It's a difficult one. That's a difficult one to say.
Why do you think it's difficult to say? I mean, can you be a bit more...
Because the conditions there have been, the human rights violations have been going on and on and on. And
so can you tell me what have your campaigns actually achieved? I mean, if you've been campaigning for this for decades,
we've been writing to the MPs and the councillors, and we've got meetings in various with the local councillors and MPs. We've been asking people to write to their MPs and to raise this in Parliament.
Okay, can I ask specifically, how long have you been campaigning for Abdul Jabbar?
Last 30 years, 40 years.
30 years, okay. So in 30 years, you're telling me...
As well.
You've had protests as well. Because from an observer's point of view, I can only say that the situation there in Palestine and Kashmir has got worse. So I don't know, with all the work and the political activism that you've done, what you've achieved practically.
We've been going to the United Nations as well.
Okay, and what has the United Nations done in response to your kind of...
The United Nations has, we have some of the prime ministers, like such as Imran Khan, he gave a speech under every United General Assembly speech. We've been having protests outside the Indian Embassy and raising with the European Union and all these countries, that have got part in the United Nations, which is a body that is like arbitrary to conflicts around the world.
Okay.
The issue is that we see that no change has happened.
And why do you think that is then, Abdul Jabbar, in your professional opinion?
I think there's vested interests of Western powers that we need to convince.
Okay, you need to convince.
We need to convince them that
there's actual benefit for them too.
These issues are going to be detrimental to everybody living on the planet. Like if the conflict between Pakistan and India was to start over Kashmir, there are two nuclear powers, and there could potentially be a nuclear fallout from there.
So given the backdrop there, Abdul Jabbar, sorry I'm pointing the microphone at you for some reason, I don't know why, but given the reality there, and given the human rights abuse, and given the military presence in Palestine and in Kashmir, practically as a politician here in the UK, lobbying your local MP, speaking to your councillor, going to the Houses of Parliament, speaking to the Prime Minister here in the UK, what do you want to achieve? I mean, what can you say to your local constituents that are pushing for this cause? What do you want?
We want the constituents to write letters to their MPs, wherever they are, up and down the country.
With the aim of achieving what?
with the aim of achieving self-determination and the human rights abuses to stop in Kashmir and in Palestine. And the only way we can do that is if we write to these MPs and explain to them that this is the situation.
Can you give me an example of when an MP has made a difference? Can you give me an example of a war or a nation that has actually, you know, come out of this situation as a result of the campaigning that the politicians have done? I want a practical solution here.
Yes.
A practical example, of who has achieved what.
Like I said, you know, it's like we've tried these solutions that we are presenting to the people, to write to the MPs.
Yeah, but my question was specifically, can you give me a case study, a case example of where this practical political activism has made a difference?
It has.
Can you name me one nation?
I can't give you any. Like the only example is East Timor.
East Timor?
East Timor was and South Sudan.
Okay.
Where the the United States and UN, they split Sudan up into two because there was a conflict going on there, and the East Timor in Indonesia where that happened. So they split these two nations up into, to make sure that they don't fight one another.
I mean, just from my own observation, I mean, I get it. Writing, campaigning, lobbying your local council and MPs is an action that we can do here. But practically, as a politician yourself, what do you see as the most practical solution in those lands? I mean, do you not think that military action is required in those nations?
These are the only practical solutions, because we've got no other. Like you're saying, military action. How can we do military action from here? All we can do is maybe like you're talking about military action by who? Who will do the military action?
Because to me, the reality of those lands is that all your lobbying and campaigning won't achieve anything, because it hasn't achieved anything. To me, practically, a solution would be to get armies engaged. I mean, you've had the United Nations in the past engaging in war. You've had America going out to Iraq to invade Iraq and Kuwait. So, why has Britain not done anything practically or militarily in those nations? I mean,
you got to understand how the system works, and you have to work inside the system to change it, to bring changes about. So everybody has to put their campaign, like I have been doing for 40 years.
For
30 years, sorry.
Okay.
30 years.
Feels like 40 years, yeah.
40 years, yeah. So basically you keep doing this, and you will, there's a hope. Don't lose hope in the system.
Would you say there's hope for the Khilafah then? Because I mean, if you're campaigning for hope, then are we not too far away to say that the Muslim nations can be united under one united kind of state?
Yes.
How do you feel about that as a politician? Is that not more a practical solution for the Muslims?
Wow, where are we gonna, where people want to establish a Khilafah? No, here you can't establish.
Of course. I mean, ideally in the Muslim world, where the demand and the reality is befitting the Islamic State.
So they should do it. How can we do it from here?
But can we not lobby and campaign for it here in the UK? I mean, a voice from the UK can be echoed throughout the whole of the world. So it has a very inspiring and kind of motivational kind of
people coming out on the streets, and violence is erupting in those countries where people are coming out and demanding the change.
Yeah. I mean, those political systems have failed those citizens.
If you look at the Arab Spring, lots of people came out and they changed the government.
Yeah.
But still, they couldn't, they were hijacked.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm saying...
They're hijacked by foreign agents that are obviously, operating within those nations, no doubt.
So, like you're saying, Khilafah is like a dream. It's like like something that we aspire to.
Like 30 years that you've been campaigning to try to make change in Palestine, Kashmir. You not feel that maybe Khilafah is more practical a solution than.
I am saying this in because people are demanding the Khilafah now.
There's a massive opinion that is widespread throughout the whole world now.
Yes, there is.
And I'm asking you as a citizen of the UK here.
And that's why I'm here to tell people not to do this, to write to the MPs, to the councillors.
So you're saying that we shouldn't work for that, but rather what we should do politically is just lobby to our local MP and councillor who is responsible for cleaning the streets, responsible for some of the projects that are funded in the area, but internationally has very little sway or very little kind of influence over what's going on internationally in the politics of Pakistan, Kashmir and Palestine.
We have a powerful role here to play.
Of course, yes.
We can demand things like human rights violations to be stopped by India, stopped by Israel in the parliament. Why don't we try that?
Yeah.
We may have to work at it for a long time, like I've been doing for 30 years, but eventually we'll get there.
Eventually, okay, after the human rights have been completely expired and lives have been torn.
If you go to listen to your councillors, your MPs, they will tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
To join the political parties, to engage in political participation, and to understand how the system is working.
I mean, it's interesting because my personal view is that a lot of politicians here are building good careers here within the system here. They'll campaign every 5 years or whenever the local elections come up. But to me, the reality on the ground doesn't really make any difference, because in all of the years that I've been around here, I've not noticed any progress in any of these nations. And if there was progress, I could say, well, yeah, I can recall this campaign or this lobbying that actually had an impact in Palestine and Kashmir. In fact, no, I think things have got worse there in the last 20 years. Since Muslims have been more active here in the UK. What do you say to that, Abdul Jabbar?
Your media should be like trying to present the reality as it is.
Okay.
And to speak, to tell people to join the political system.
I understand that. That's the narrative that you're trying to project.
These problems will eventually get solved.
Eventually will get solved.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Because obviously the world is not a perfect place.
Of course not.
So, you're talking about Khilafah. This is going to take people into wrong direction. They will start demanding change.
How do you feel listening to this or watching this? Do you think that the amount of work that's been put in the political system here in England, in the UK, has improved the realities of the Muslim world? Has it worsened them? How long have you been campaigning within the political system here to make a difference? And the reality is, what difference have you made? Maybe you've improved the rights and kind of, the facilities that the Muslims are receiving within your neighborhoods. But beyond that, internationally, what have you achieved? I don't know. I don't really see a great deal. I see there's a voice there. I see there's a channel there and a direction there. But beyond that, it's a lot of voices that are being drowned out.
Can we give the right direction to the youth,
young
people? I'm asking the question to the viewers, and yourself as well. You're a young man and you live in the West, and why would you want a Khilafah for? Why would the youth want a Khilafah in the Muslim countries? What will it solve?
It's a very interesting question. I think there's a lot of issues here, a lot of things to unravel here. But first of all, I mean, you can see from the recent riots that took place here in the UK, you can see a lot of negative kind of like opinions that are like coming out of societies. I mean, there's a lot of unrest within communities here, and I think Muslims even feel that they're not being treated as equal citizens within the UK. What would you say to that?
That is, we've been trying to prevent.
Look at our communities. Look how
you see the extremism is coming. Like people are, young people are, praying and.
Do you see that as something negative?
No, but they could be linked into the conveyor belt theory of extremism.
I think it's an interesting theory, but I think the reality is a lot of frustration in young people seeing how the West are waging a lot of wars or are indirectly involved with a lot of wars that are going on. I mean, for example, Israel's being funded by the taxpayer here. America's obviously supporting Israel here as well. India's another nation that's been prompted by the UK and by America. So when young Muslims are seeing this, they are being kind of not depoliticized, but they are kind of disenfranchised, by the political system here.
What I've got to say to you is, a lot of the problems are because of our. This is coming from certain people, celebrities, or from the some of the scholars. They might be celebrity scholars, or they say it is the community's fault.
Community's fault
for all these problems that exist, like drugs and all these problems, and why don't we make the change? Why shouldn't we rectify our own selves first?
So where does the government and where does the system play a part and take responsibility of what is happening in these communities? Sorry, I mean, when do you take ownership of that? Excuse me, but not point the not to point the finger at the communities, but rather take ownership and say, as a government, as a process of governance, we have an accountability to take care of these communities and ensure communities are getting equal kind of rights and equal kind of facilities. Yes, there is a lot of issues in our communities that we need to address. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's a dual responsibility.
There's so much a government can do.
I think there's a lot of things government can do. I think there's a lot more the government can do that it's not doing. I think you can just walk around the streets of Bradford and you can go into like the areas like Harrogate, you find a very different reality there. You find the councils are operating very differently there, whereas they aren't operating in the same level in Bradford. So you get that disservice.
What's your question? I mean, what is your question?
I think as a taxpayer, as a council taxpayer, I guess the question becomes that, as a council, or as a councillor, as an MP, there is a sense of accountability for you to take responsibility for your communities. In some respect, you are a parent of those communities. You do play an active role. You should be actively engaged with those communities, and rather than pointing fingers at the community, you should be part and parcel and instrumental in the development of that community and bringing that community out of the state that it's in into a better state.